The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's System Administrator webinar. Today we are going to be covering the WeOpportunity system configuration settings, including user rights and data lists. My name is Samantha Perry, and joining me is Stephen Nasty, who's going to be instructing us through. Hope you guys all had a nice holiday and New Year and are ready to rock and roll for 2023. So today's session, again, is going to be on the back end of WeOpportunity. We're going to go through a lot of the user settings on how to license different users for different products, how to configure groups and group rights, and kind of go through some of the highlights of groups, how you might break groups out, and the different group rights and permissions that you might want to pay attention to. We're going to assign those to users and just kind of various other user settings. And then we are going to spend some time on how to update your data lists and just provide some feedback there on, good options for, the workflow and the reporting that you're trying to hit. So as always, we want you to get the most out of your time. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat as we go, or even if you need to see something again. And with that, I will pass it to Stephen, who's going to walk us through today.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Hello, everybody. Echoing the same sentiment as Sam had said, hopefully you all had a great holiday stretch there and a Happy New Year as well. So today's webinar is going to be focused primarily on kind of a lot of work on WeOpportunity, showing some WeEstimate as well, just showing licensing, things like that. It's going to be pretty interactive, so if you have any questions throughout, feel free to type them in the chat. I'll be more than happy to help as much as I can. So just by going down the list here, just been talking points, showing licensing really quick, how to license users for WeOpportunity and WeEstimate. Again, predominantly a refresher for all the admins on the call. So I have WeEstimate open right now. I'm just going to make it a little bigger so you can see it a little bit better. So you're going to be going into Tools, System Configuration here. And you'll be going into the User Setup tab. So we just search for any user you have or you can find. Either search for them or you can just leave this blank here and just hit Go and just filter by the region or office, whatever is easier for you. So we'll just search for a user first. Go ahead and click on Edit. In the middle here, you're going to see all of your groups that you have available to you. And then on the right-hand side, you're going to be looking for this licensing tab all the way at the end. In the licensing tab, you have all of your modules here. So kind of newer to 6.7, I think 6.6 or 6.7, we added a couple different integrations here, such as EDI, Dealer Ally, things like that. But also, you're still going to have your core applications here, right? You're going to see your Code Anywhere, Site Survey, WeEstimate, WeOpportunity, WeSuite Go, all that good stuff. So first and foremost, if you create a user through WeEstimate or through WeOpportunity, take a look at licensing here as well. I'm going to show you licensing WeOpportunity a little bit later too. Predominantly, I like to always say, if you're creating a new user, create them within WeEstimate. I just think that it's a little easier just to navigate with the creating a new user. You have your licensing kind of right there. So I would always say create your user within WeEstimate if you can. If you're WeOpportunity only, that's not a problem. We'll show you how to do that a little bit later as well. But I would say if you have WeEstimate, take a look at your user there, take a look at your groups and your licensing. The groups are mirrored, so if you create a group within WeEstimate, it will write back and vice versa as well. So pay attention to your groups. The only difference is the group rights won't write over just because each application functions differently. So the groups will be there, the rights will be different, of course. Okay. And then just to toggle them on and off is just a simple check, right? So just check on and off and click on Save. This wasn't one of the talking points, but while I'm here, I just want to talk about it just because it is the new year and I know that, users come and go sometimes. And I've been getting a lot of, clients doing some outreach to me lately about activating and deactivating users and what's better for pricing and things like that. So I'll showcase just a little bit of that right now, just because I think today's going to be on the shorter side of the webinars. So really quick, if you are using, let's say you have a couple different users that are, no longer with your company, and you want to kind of figure out the best way to do it. The best way to kind of kind of deactivate it or handle them, there's one of two different ways. So the very first way that you can do it is you can go into licensing, and you can just simply strip away all of their licensing for the applications. And you can click on Save. What that'll do in that case is now the user is no longer able to log in. You will not get charged for any of the applications, but the user's jobs, quotes, things like that, they may have been active at the time, will still be searchable. So I'd always say take a look at that. If you are, let's say you have a user that maybe was a power user that left halfway through the year, maybe towards the end of the year, but you still want to have access to their quotes, their jobs, all that good stuff needs as well. If you deactivate them from here, so you leave them active, but you deactivate their licensing. So you take away these checkboxes here, click on Save, and then in the General tab, you leave this account enabled. By doing that, that'll let everything be searchable, but the account will not be able to be logged in, and you won't be charged, but you can still search for the user's quotes and things like that. If you don't want to be able to have any kind of visibility over the quotes, or let's say you've gone in there already and you pass them over to a different user, you can simply just uncheck the licensing like we did already. You can go into the General tab here and unselect the Enable account. That will then hide the user. You won't be able to find them. They won't show up on the ERG or anything like that. And all of their quotes, if they have anything under them, as well as any leads, will be hidden. So I would say, if you have any active users or users that you want to kind of finagle and do things like that, start with the licensing first, remove any checkboxes there. This way you won't get charged for them, and you can then kind of figure out the best way to handle it moving forward. I know that wasn't one of the talking points on today's webinar, but I figured while we're here and it's the start of the new year, I wanted to touch base on that really quickly, just so you can at least see how to do that and what the best practices are for that, since I know I've been getting a lot of outreach from clients on that as well. So any questions, guys, on licensing, kind of best practices for that? Any questions on that so far?
No, it's looking good.
Awesome, looks good, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to leave WeEstimate open, but I'm just going to go ahead and minimize it here, and I have our WeOpportunity open. So I'm just going to make this kind of a little bit kind of in the middle here, just because with my resolution I get this kind of white bar at the bottom. So I'll just make it like that. That's fine. So within WeOpportunity, there's a couple different talking points right here. So I want to go first and foremost just by configuring the groups, editing groups, doing group rights, all that good stuff. So we'll just make it a little bit bigger so we can just kind of find it. Sorry for the bar on the bottom here, guys. We'll scroll down here. So on settings, and this may look a little different from everybody here, depending on how many rights you have. Most of you are admins, so you should have access to all of these side tabs here. So we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and just collapse some of these so you can see it a little better. And you're going to be looking here on the settings tab. So we're going to be focusing a lot of our time today on the settings tab here. You'll see data lists, data points, groups, and group rights, as well as user settings. Each one of those tabs we're going to break down and go into a little bit at a time here. We'll start with groups and group rights. So by clicking on the groups tab, you'll see it'll look very familiar to you, right? You'll have your groups that you had created, either created within WeOpportunity or created within WeEstimate. Again, it is bi-directional, so take a note of that. Make sure that's something that you know going into it, because if you create a group in one, it'll show up in the other. So what a lot of the times people do is they will have groups that were created within WeEstimate and then utilize those and kind of repurpose them within WeOpportunity to kind of create that correlation. Now, just because the applications do similar things, but at their core, they're different, right, in terms of the process. Users will go into the group rights and kind of just tweak things and change things there. So just keep that in mind that it is bidirectional. So if we create a group in one, it'll then populate in the other and vice versa. So within groups, you'll have access to all of your groups. You can click on the edit button to make a change to the verbiage here. Like, let's say you made a typo or you just want to rename something. You can add a new record as well. So it just adds like a new kind of like an Excel line there where you can go ahead and type group name in if you want to. You can also remove a group, although I think if you have a group with an active user in it, it will yell at you and say that you can't delete it. So let's say you added a group in error, you can click this delete button to remove it if you'd like. And that's the group interface. So you can scroll down here. You may have a couple different tabs. This will be created by default in order of creation, but you can click on the name to sort it by ascending or descending. And that's the groups tab. In group rights, this is kind of where the bulk of your time is going to be spent. So very similarly to groups here within WeEstimate, you're going to see a lot of familiarities, a lot of kind of common kind of things. The only difference within WeOpportunity to WeEstimate is within WeEstimate you have the group that you search for, and then the rights that are associated to it. Within WeOpportunity, it's the reverse, so it's the inverse. You click on the right, and you see which group has access to it on the right-hand side. So each one of these tabs here, then we're going to just kind of focus on this group rights tab. Each one of these tabs kind of does different things. They have, judging by the header. So you have just kind of running through here, Billboard access. Billboard, I think, is a feature. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a way to display kind of like a message of the day kind of a thing, where you can have a message display on the home screen. Is that still something that we do? Because I think a lot of users don't use it anymore.
Yeah, that was the purpose of it. It's just custom for each person, so most people, like a couple people might have customized it, but it's not. It's something that would need extra configuration.
Got it. Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, so that's kind of just like a billboard functionality where you can have a message of the day display if you want to have that, but it requires some customization to move forward with that. Contracts. So contacts have a couple different things within them. These are predominantly used when importing or exporting contacts. You can have different requirements to different fields. So just running through these really quickly, contact fields gives you what is visible. So if you have contact title, phone, cell phone, fax, email, things like that, what's visible, what's required, is read-only. So a lot of these verbiage, if you will, like is required, is visible, is read-only, those are all things that are going to be shared between WeEstimate and WeOpportunity. So those things may sound familiar to you. The rights itself are going to be different, right? There may be some overlap here and there, but the rights, the language is going to be the same. So scrolling down here, you're going to see all of the groups that are associated to that right. So you're going to see all the groups that are within your system here. And you can scroll down just to find a little bit more. So with WeOpportunity, a lot of these rights have the 3 panels here. So if you're familiar with this, like the group, any sort of group information to edit here, as well as the right, those are all kind of broken out in 3 columns within WeEstimate. Within WeOpportunity, depending on the right and depending on the customization of the right, you'll have the fields on the left, you'll have any customization on the top, and then the groups on the bottom. Or you'll just have the kind of the groups in the middle if there's really no customization needed. Going down here, contacts access. This gives you access to the contacts tab on the left-hand side. This will allow you to take a look at contacts, manipulate them, see what you have. Export to Excel. It allows you to export the contacts out to Excel if you wish. This is something that's controlled by group rights, so if you don't want to have everybody have access, you can limit or restrict this. If it's something that you would like all your sales users to have access to, you can do so that as well. Now, keep in mind, contacts is your master list of contacts, so that's depending on the user, right? You may want to have access for everybody, or you may want to restrict it to certain groups. Dashboard access gives you access to your dashboard right in the middle of your screen. Global schedule. Global schedule is your calendar. So you can take a look at appointments and things like that, or schedule new appointments, new tasks, things along those lines. That also allows you to ultimately sync your Outlook calendar if you so wish. My employees typically is geared more towards admins. We can take a look at my employees' rights. Similarly to system configuration here within WeEstimate your user setup. Import utility. Import utility allows you to have access to the side button here. Import utility will allow you to import various different things such as parts, contacts, customers, leads, things like that. Those are all built to Excel. So if you have an Excel file with any sort of contacts, customers, or leads, you can go ahead and import them. I think the import parts might have been originally designed for Code Anywhere 1, so I don't know if that's actually still a thing. I have to double check on that. And we're not going to go through every single one of these tasks, but I just want to kind of go through the highlights here. Lead Center, this is where you create your new leads. So you can go here on your lead management tab. This will give you access to your lead center, where you can take a look at new opportunity, existing leads, leads to be assigned, search for leads, things like that. So typically this is one of the most predominant ones that you want to have access for most users here. And this is broken down by a lot of these subsets here. So existing leads, lead center access, new opportunity. These are all mirrored to this lead management tab here. So if you look here, you'll see a lot of the verbiage that we're talking about. Again, no right or wrong answer for a lot of these. It's just a matter of what customization do you want to have and what do you want to allow or restrict for your users. Lead management, same kind of concept. This is done for different levels, right? So you can have the assigning a lead to an office, a past group, to a salesperson, generally done at an admin level, or if you have like an administrative role that does a lot of the stuff where they kind of assign things to users, you can move forward with that. A lot of the other stuff here is more basic kind of structure, right? My employees, my opportunities, new opportunity, and then within the opportunity, contact fields, location fields, RFQ fields, sold fields, things like that. Another good one that I want to show really quick here, because this actually came up on a support ticket not too long ago, is the opportunity RFQ fields. So if you are moving forward with, and I'm going to show something else too as well, if you are RFQing a lead, so if you're going into an active lead and you change it to RFQ, you're ready to create a job, this is where you can control what fields are required. So from an admin standpoint, if you do use WeOpportunity and WeEstimate, I would take note of this just because you have control here of what data comes over to WeEstimate and what you can make required to be shown in WeEstimate. So you have everything from office, market, job type, sales type, if there's a contract that's relevant to that, if you use pricing contracts, and system type, things like that. So you can have these all visible, or you can hide some of these. I know some users have come to me and say, can I hide, contract? We don't utilize pricing contracts. You can hide it here. Or if you want to make certain required, you select that here as well. On the bottom portion, you can go ahead and select the groups that you want to have access to this. So if you're not seeing an RFQ window pop up, chances are the group might not belong to this right. So take a look at that as well. Same thing for sold, right? So sold and RFQ, the difference is there. RFQ creates a job within WeEstimate, and you can open it up there and then move forward with the actual quote. Opportunity sold, marking it as sold will allow you to just win the quote or win the opportunity, and it will just mark it as sold, and it won't create within WeEstimate. Reasons for that could be, if you either are standalone, you just use WeOpportunity, or let's say you are, the job already exists within WeEstimate, and you just want to go back into the backlog and make a record within WeOpportunity. You can do that as well. Mark it as sold. It won't create a job within WeEstimate. It's a little different than the RFQ process because there won't be a link, but you can mark it in there if you want to have for your records as well, or for reporting purposes. Map access. We have a map integration with Bing, which I believe is fully out and functional right now. I know they kind of went under the hood for a little bit there, but it will display any sorts of leads you have by site address based off of Bing Maps. So you can utilize that if you want to kind of just have an overarching view of where all your leads are. Marketing dashboard, it's one of those niche features where you can have a marketing dashboard access where it'll give you kind of specific options that are more designed towards marketing. Prospecting, same concept. Prospecting is gives you access to the prospecting tab up here. You'll have access to a couple different things, contacts, how to export to Excel, location fields, as well as the dashboard access itself. Prospecting, generally the early stages of a sale, You can turn that on if you want to take advantage of prospecting. If you're not too familiar with prospecting or you want to have a walkthrough, you can go ahead and contact your account administrator, account manager, Sam, or myself, whatever it may be, and we can kind of give you a little bit more information about how prospecting works. And same thing with this checkbox too. Prospecting gives you another access to a different plan. Quote, this is something that I would hold off on. Sam, do you know, this is something that I am not too sure of. This, I believe, is for Quote Anywhere 1, right? So this is something that users should pretty much not really turn on, or do you know that for sure?
I don't know 100%. I do think some of those rights would pertain to the new Quote Anywhere. It just won't be, because that would open a new website anyway. But yeah, I would say that most of those probably are going to be deprecated anyway, because we're coming up with a new set of group rights for Quote Anywhere 3.0. So I think it's okay to skip those. But things like being able to create a quote, like if you can't create a quote, that's a good place to look.
Right. Yeah, and as Sam had mentioned and touched base on, we are going live with group rights within Quote Anywhere 3. So a lot of these checkboxes here are going to be kind of sunsetted, if you will. So they're just going to go away and kind of repurposed for Quote Anywhere 3. But yeah, Sam had mentioned there are some things in here to kind of have as a starting point. If you are utilizing Quote Anywhere and you are having issues with creating a quote or editing, this might be a good point to start at, such as creating quote, editing quote, things like that. With reports, reports give you access to this reports tab on the side here. Export to Excel, if you want to export these reports to Excel. Export to Excel is generally used for the ERG, so you can export that out to Excel. Leads by count, you'll see kind of all these mirrored to the side here as I'm going through them. Leads by detail, leads by status, reports access, sales dashboard. Those are all, again, they're there if you want to allow or restrict users to have access to them. I would assume from an admin standpoint, you want to have access to the reporting, whereas a sales user, you may want to not have them access everything, maybe reports that are only designed for their own things. Sales intelligence, don't have to worry about that. That's something that is sunset. Scratchpad focuses on gives like an additional notepad type of thing where you can kind of just, jot down notes, things like that. Again, it's a very niche feature that if it's there, if you want it, if you want to have kind of a built-in notepad type of thing where you kind of just jot down thoughts, things like that, you can turn on the Scratchpad access. Lastly here is the system rights. System rights give you access to a lot of system tabs. So you can, just by running through here, this is one of the big ones here that I want to focus on, change status to sold. So I was actually working with a client of ours fairly recently, and they weren't able to change the status from, opportunity, prospect, whatever it may be, lead to sold. And it turns out it was just the checkbox that was just not enabled for the group. So if you are utilizing that sold status for opportunities and you don't strictly want to just do RFQ, or if you if you want to force users to RFQ and not just mark as sold, then take a look at this change status to sold option down here. All this will do is within the actual lead itself. So to show you this really quick, is open anything here. This will give you access to sold here. So if this is on, you'll see this sold status. If this is off, then the sold status will no longer be there. With data lists, and with something that I'm going to kind of transition here shortly, is that most data lists, such as stages on that, cannot be changed. They're kind of hard coded into WeOpportunity, but the sold status is tied to that group right.
And I just want to remind that most people don't have that on as a selection because the lead will go to either WeEstimate or Quote Anywhere to build a quote. You're going to win or lose the job, and that will automatically win or lose the lead. The only reason you would want sold in the lead, like Steven said, is if you just like we have some people who use WeOpportunity by itself and they don't use the quoting, or they may have a team that will win leads and do quotes separately. So that would really be the main reason that you would want that.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, and then everything else here, guys, is just a general kind of overarching view of who has access to what tabs, data lists, data points, group rights, groups, things like that. So a lot of these tabs at the bottom here are system-wide, very similar to how you have them within WeEstimate, where if you want to have certain users, certain groups have access to certain tabs, you can control it here. So data, I'm just going to run through them really quick. Data lists are the data list equivalent. Oh, yeah, they're the data list equivalent within WeOpportunity. So you can have access to that or restrict access to that. Data points are a complement to data lists. Is the best way that I can describe them as. You have access to customers, contacts, kind of quick hitting information that you can view at a glance. Group rights, as we are right now, you can restrict who has access to this or who doesn't have access to this, or if you want to have admins or whatever it may be. Groups are the groups tab itself, this guy right here, so he has access to that. And then heat index, we'll click on that really quickly here. Allows you to kind of have a toggle at a glance on the customer's satisfaction level. So if you want to utilize this to kind of track who has what kind of happy face, the first thing I think about this is when you go to the hospital and it has the pain scale. So you can track this. You can also select your icons as well to kind of determine who's in a good spot, who isn't. And seriously, it's a good tool to have just because you can, at a glance, when looking at an account, say, oh, okay, they're neutral. What could we do better? Or they're unhappy with us. Okay, it kind of goes off the red flags. Let's see what we can do to change that. Map pins, same concept. We were there just before. Map pins gives you access to big maps. I'll open that really quick because I didn't show it to you before. This gives you just kind of an access to the actual pins themselves, where you can kind of determine, what each icon means. Kind of built in, right? I don't think there's really too much tweaking to do there, but if you want to alter those, you can. Let's go back to group rights. And there's just other couple guys here. I'm not going to run through every single one of these, but office settings, questionnaires, who has access to those. Then the last major one here to show is the user settings, where you'll another one of these tabs that you can have access to, which we'll showcase in a little bit here. The last little bit is just the ERG. You can have access to who has access to the ERG, WeEstimate ERG, WeOpportunity ERG access at a base level, my employees, exporting the ERG to Excel, like so on and so forth. So a lot of these tabs, guys, and I'm sorry for it's a little monotonous, and I'm sorry for that, but all these options here are there just to kind of serve as a reference point and just to kind of allow or restrict users and groups to have access to things within the application. So I don't expect everyone to know everything or remember everything or know what each checkbox does or what every single right does. So if you have any questions throughout, or if you have any questions after the webinar, or let's say if this sparks a conversation to say, you know what, let's go into our system. It's the new year. Let's look at groups. Let's look at rights. Let's look at who belongs to what. If it sparks that conversation and you need help with that at any point, feel free to reach out to support, reach out to me directly. Be more than happy to set up a call with you guys and just walk through everything. More than happy to help as best as I can. Okay. So I don't want to spend too much more time on these group rights. Any other questions, guys, on any of the group rights, what they do, anything that I didn't cover in terms of groups that you want me to cover, anything like that? Okay.
Looks good. I did want to make one comment, Stephen. If you go up to like lead center, lead management.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons these are separate is they used to actually have two separate tabs. But the big thing here, if you're wondering what is the difference, is that you might have people in the office that are creating leads, passing them to other people. and that's all they're doing. They're never working on their own leads. Whereas a salesperson or a sales manager could create leads for themselves or create leads for themselves and could pass. So when you're going through the lead center, that's basically just office type people. They can make new leads, they can access that area, they can pass it to other salespeople. Whereas lead management, if you scroll down just a little bit, Stephen, will have more, all of that plus a little bit more, because you can see they could look at my leads, you know, different they could maybe be required to include different fields, but then also if you're a manager, you can then decide, can they assign to an office a pass group to people? If I'm a manager, can I see people that are under my employees? So it could be a little bit confusing, but think lead center as admin type person, or central station or office. They answer the phone, they pass it along, and lead management is kind of that plus salespeople, and they can also look at their own stuff. So I think we just got a quick question. So yeah, it was just a comment more so than a question, but was kind of an indicator when a lead hasn't been touched in a certain amount of time. So definitely a good suggestion, not something there now, but is something that today you can kind of, if you're using a lot of the reporting, you can see that a lead was created, but no action has been taken, meaning there's no last updated date, the status was never changed, things like that. But yeah, no, definitely a good consideration for a feature. And we are kind of working on WeOpportunity 2.0. And so that I think is good to put on the to-do list, because I do get asked that pretty often on if you pass a lead and the rep doesn't do anything with it, to indicate like, okay, now that needs to be passed on to somebody else.
Yeah, and it's kind of continuing off of what Sam was saying, John. The closest thing we have to something like that would be an untouched leads bucket. Untouched leads, you can set a threshold to see how many, like, if you want to have hours or days, weeks, months, whatever it may be. If you utilize, it's kind of like a specific spot. So I agree with what Sam is saying. WeOpportunity is something that is going to be going under the hood soon here. So this might be a good change to have kind of a little more readily available. But in the classic dashboard, if you scroll all the way down, there's going to be this untouched leads bucket, which tells you how many days have gone by without any action on a specific lead. So for example, this one lead has gone untouched for 587 days and 2 hours, which might not be the best thing to let this go, for almost 2 years now. But you can have access to the opportunity ID as well as the name, the status, who owns it, and the main contact. That actual, like the threshold, in case this, I don't know if this is specifically what you were looking for, but that threshold, that area is controlled within my settings. So let's just open this up really quick. In the dashboard settings, you're going to be looking for the classic dashboard, and it's going to be this untouched leads bucket right here. So you can set the threshold for hours if you want to. So right now I have 20 hours. The few times I've seen this up to the client that takes advantage of this, generally they set it for like a couple days, maybe 24 hours, something like that. You can toggle this to be shown on your dashboard or hidden if you don't like that to be shown or hidden. And you can also include any untouched opportunities of my employees. So if let's say you're a manager and you have 5 employees that are under you for your team, and you want to just view an overarching kind of side of how they're doing and what hasn't been touched in a while. If you want to kind of micromanage that, you can toggle this checkbox here, so you can show what leads hit this threshold of hours, so 20 hours, and I have 5 users under me. Just kind of utilize that example. If I have 5 users under me and those 5 users have gone 24 hours without touching these leads, they will then show under my dashboard as well. So I have an overarching way to view my leads as well as any leads of anybody I'm responsible for within my opportunities. Right. Yeah, and that's something that I think is a very good suggestion. I mean, it's something that we could probably, add as more of an enhancement. That functionality doesn't exist right now, and the kind of the comment for everyone to see was it would be ideal for any untouched leads to be auto moved back into leads to be assigned field. So I would say that would probably function more similarly to something like this, right? You could set a threshold, and then it can move over. Doesn't exist right now. Definitely a good suggestion to have in the future. Add that, maybe add that as an enhancement request to have a built-in kind of side functionality that if you want to utilize this, you can turn it on. Absolutely. Any other questions, guys? I know that was a lot to cover in terms of groups and group rights, and I know that it's a kind of a lot of nitty-gritty stuff. But any questions so far? Because we have a couple different things that I want to go through. Those are both very quick hitting. So any questions so far, guys?
Yep, looks good.
Awesome. So we covered group rights. We covered group rights, how to set them. We went through licensing. So the last couple of things I want to kind of touch on really quickly here are assigning a user to groups, kind of other various group user settings, and then lastly, we'll talk about how to update the lists, data lists, things like that. So really quickly, we are pretty much here. So I'm going to go ahead and close out all these tabs just to make it a little easier to view. And then we're going to go into user settings. User settings, if you're familiar with WeEstimate, it is your user setup tab. You'll see a lot of similarities here within your groups and kind of general information about the user. So for ease of access, we're just going to search for my dummy user here, Johnny Cash, and we're going to go ahead and take a look on the sides. So you'll see a lot of familiarities here, right? You'll see your user information, you'll see kind of the approval setup. Do they manage others? Login information, username, password, things like that. For any sort of, scroll up here a little bit. For groups, it's the same thing, right? So if you have, by default, the user will have its rights. If it was a pre-existing user, it'll have its groups that it belongs to. So these are all groups that are shared between both applications that I have access to. People Manager, in essence, does the same thing as WeEstimate, but within WeOpportunity, there are actually a couple of new kind of nice features that I like. For instance, if you want to have access to all users to pass to, you can hit this select a column. You can select pass lead. And you can hit the select all button and then click on save. What that'll do is that'll turn on that right for all of my users. So it's a nice little time saver feature as well. So just by scrolling through here, these are the master list of users. You have your manage user, which kind of functions exactly like how this one here. Let me just find the user so we can kind of go back and forth. This manage user functions like this outside box here within WeEstimate, giving you viewership to that person and kind of having the quote unquote access to their leads, jobs, things like that. By default, this will be turned on if it's on over here as well. You'll see the user, the office, the region they belong to. If you want to have approvals over them as well, you can check that here. Read-only, same thing as WeEstimate. It gives you read-only access to them. You'll be able to make changes to any sort of leads they have or jobs they have. Sharing is more of a shared feature. Sharing within WeOpportunity doesn't really do much, I don't think. This is just a carryover from WeEstimate. Just helps you share your jobs with another user. Splits, production and commission splits. Again, not really much functionality there within WeOpportunity. Managed is a specific right for commissions. And I'll just kind of go through the only ones that kind of pertain to WeOpportunity is really this pass lead and allow a lead search. These are the two ones that are pretty big. Allow lead search allows you to search for leads for that user. So this is big one. This is a big one to have turned on if you are an admin. Make sure you have this turned on for all users. And pass lead, right? Pass lead allows you to have access to pass a lead from one bucket to another sales user's bucket. Not just a sales user, if you have pass groups, things like that, you can do that as well. Pass to an office, region, things like that. Okay. Strengths is a feature that we'll kind of go over. I believe this is actually built in as a data list too. Strengths allow you to kind of have some customization to better determine what users are good at. The reason for this and kind of the intention of this is to say, let's say a lead comes in that is going to be a fire alarm system, and you want to know who to pass this lead to or who assigned it to, you can then go into, like, let's say Johnny Cash specializes in fire alarms. You can select alarm panels and this annunciator panel, click on save. Then when you're looking at a master list for users to pass to, it'll say Johnny Cash strengths, and you'll see the fire alarm with this information under there. It's a nice tool. Not everybody, it's not a requirement if you don't want to utilize it, but it's a nice little organizational piece where if you are managing and distributing leads, it might be a good idea to have this turned on and enabled so you can better determine who's good at what. Now, again, a lot of this stuff is just common knowledge. And if you are managing a team, you'll know who's good at what and who may not be good at what. But it's a good little way to kind of better organize yourself as well. Task groups, something that I touched base on a little while ago. Task groups serve as a complement to like a region or office. A task group is generally a small group of users that distribute leads within their respected office or branch. Probably the best example of this is to say, let's say you have an office that has 30 users, and of those 30 users, you have 3 or 4 managers that look over them and kind of determine different things. Let's say that those 30 users specialize like in residential sales or things like that. You can create a pass group that is comprised of a small group of people that you can pass a lead to, and then that pass group will then distribute those leads to the corresponding users. By default, you can also assign leads to a pass group. So a lot of the times, users will then assign a lead to a pass group. The pass group would then say, okay, of our 30 users, this lead might be great for this user, this maybe go to this user, and you can break it out and divvy it out that way. It's a nice complement to assigning a lead to an office, because a pass group has a kind of like a smaller scale office that they can assign to. So if you want to have a user belong to a pass group, you can then select the pass group here that is available within your system, and you can assign the user to that. If a lead will ever be assigned to, let's say, the sales management pass group, this user will then have access to that lead, and they'll be able to pass it around to whoever they think it might be best, including themselves if they want to do that as well. Okay, so just a question came in, just more of a kind of a comment. It'd be helpful to be able to drag a people manager column to the left so that you can have it closer to the name of the users that you're working on. To feel that it is view day, forces users to scroll a row and make sure you're activating it from the correct field for a user. Yeah, totally agree with that comment. It is something that with quoting, without kind of talking too much about it, because it definitely can't talk about it too much right now. But a lot of those visual updates and the ability to kind of view everything at a glance and kind of a UI overhaul are things that are going to be coming with this kind of revamp of WeOpportunity. So these are all things that I like hearing this feedback, because I do agree with you that the layout can use some tweaks here and there. But yeah, that's a lot of that layout stuff and kind of changing around what is visible at a glance, things like that are all coming with that WeOpportunity overhaul. And just continuing, another user had submitted just a kind of a comment. We utilize strengths to help show what offices our sales team works within, so as to help to our customer care team members when passing leads. Exactly. So they're basically saying that they have this as kind of a nice reference point for a different team to know what each office is strong in. Perfect. It's great. It's nice to hear that you utilize that. It's perfect. Awesome. And then lastly, guys, here I just want to showcase this last tab, applications. Applications are your licenses, right? So you'll see the exact same drop-down group area here as you will see within WeEstimate. License, it's called licensing here within WeEstimate. It's called applications within WeOpportunity. Same concept. You can restrict or grant access to various applications within both. I like to do it within WeEstimate just because I feel like you have everything at a quick glance, so you don't have to jump between tabs, and it's a little easier just to kind of navigate within, to view groups, to view licenses, things like that. But again, that's up to you. There's really no right or wrong answer. The ability to take and restrict groups, grant groups, as well as grant licensing are bidirectional, and they're available within both these applications. So whatever you feel more comfortable with doing, feel free to do the same thing. But the functionality stays the same, right? You can go in here, edit, check it off to restrict it or save it. The only difference that I find is that within WeOpportunity, it doesn't tell you the date. It just has the flat part. So it'll just tell you access yes or no. Are there other reasons why we should set applications in WeOpportunity versus WeEstimate? So really, I wouldn't say there's a hard reason, yes or no. Typically, I think it's more of a comfort thing. In the past, on earlier builds of V5, there were some issues if you did writes within WeOpportunity versus WeEstimate. So I was always kind of encouraged, if you're licensing users or creating users, do it within WeEstimate first, and then it'll write over to WeOpportunity. Since it always was bidirectional, but earlier on, I'm talking years ago, there were a lot more issues within WeOpportunity when it's granting, rights or creating users, licensing, things like that. Nowadays, a lot of that stuff has been resolved, and it's pretty seamless back and forth. I would say it's really just depending on what interface you're more comfortable with. For me, I am a little more comfortable within the WeEstimate interface. And I also like how WeEstimate has everything at a glance. So I feel like for licensing purposes, the ability to say, I can see the groups in the middle, I can see the licensing here, and I can see what user I'm working on, all on one screen, all at a quick glance, and I can have it kind of easily in front of me. I typically would always say I lean towards WeEstimate when doing licensing or rights, any kind of group rights, things like that, just because it's all right there. But you may turn around and you may say, you know what, no, I like on the browser, I like to be able to go on, on the web and have access to certain things on the fly, and I can kind of view everything here, and I can kind of toggle through licensing, applications, things like that. So again, it's really more of a preference. I would say back in the day, it was always more like do stuff within WeEstimate and it writes back. But that was years ago. A lot of those issues have been resolved nowadays. So nowadays, it's more of a comfort thing. I would say take a look at whichever interface you are more comfortable with, and then kind of go from there. There's really no trade-offs other than the fact that the actual rights themselves are going to be different in terms of groups, right? So you may have to look at one or the other to do the group rights. But in terms of licensing, and groups and things like that, not the rights, just the groups itself, either or. It's just a matter of what interface you are more of a fan of and what you're more familiar with. Any questions so far, guys? Because I have one last little point that I want to talk about, and then we will leave some room for questions, and then we'll talk about the next webinar. Any other questions, guys, for the last little topic here? Okay, I think we are good. And yeah, please, if you have any comments, even if it's not really a a question, just more of a comment, feel free to type them in the chat. Are they both real-time changes? Yes. So really quickly, it is real-time change. Sometimes it goes off of your licensing sync. So every single server has a licensing sync. So I would say by default, it's a minute. So there may be like a minute delay, but generally it's pretty seamless. Generally it's real-time. So if you close out of one, you open the other, it'll have been refreshed already. So they're all real-time changes. They're all both seamless. So yeah, by default, the program options are pretty much under a minute. Okay. So really quickly here, guys, I have a couple different things I want to talk about really quickly. They're both kind of overlapping. So first and foremost, we have data lists. So if you're familiar with data lists within WeEstimate and program options, appearances, if you're familiar with these here, item list, data lists, these are going to be the area to do it within WeOpportunity. So the only thing to note here is that data lists are static within WeOpportunity. So you're not going to be able to create a new data list, but you can modify data lists. So for instance, if you want to take a look at, let's say lead origin, I know this is kind of one that a lot of users utilize. You can take a look at this. You can add a new record if you want to. You can modify. You can delete. You can control what's active, what isn't active. These are all static. So what I mean by static is that you can't add a new data list type. but you can go into a data list, say, let's say lead origin, and add a record or change existing records. So there's a couple different ones here. There's job type, contact type, a deactivate reason, why did this lead get deactivated? Lead source, market, things like that. So these are all things that you'll probably be familiar with, and I can't really unfortunately with data lists, it's hard to kind of showcase what's best for everybody, just because every company does everything differently. The best thing that I can say is that, if you are going through your system and you say, you know what, this area needs a tweak, or let's say, kind of the easiest one to say is lead source, right? Let's say you have to organize your leads better, you want to showcase how the leads come in, where they come from, and have that as kind of a marker or an indicator for reporting purposes. You can go into lead source and you can go ahead and, activate them, deactivate them, create a brand new one. That's totally up to you. I would always say a lot of the times with a new year, take a look at your system for little things like this, just because it kind of, it alleviates the headache later in the year when sales users are going in and they're filling out things incorrectly, or they're just blowing through lead source because they don't really care about how marking it correctly. By tweaking it here and giving the kind of almost up-to-date information, you can kind of prevent a lot of that stuff from happening later on. But these are data lists. They function very similarly to, like I said, WeEstimate. I can go through a couple of these and just kind of see, what each means. Past groups data lists, you can change past groups within the system, add a new one, or just, maybe you want to change the name of it. You click on edit, change it. Let's say maybe did a spelling error, or you want to deactivate them, you can unselect that. Okay.
I'll just make a quick comment that often what we see is lead origin is physically how did the lead come in, and then lead source is why. So you don't have to use it that way, but I do see that used quite often. So origin could be incoming, outgoing effort, website, referral, self-generated, and then the source would be why did they call you, referral from who, which trade show. So that can help kind of have a broader choice as the origin and a more narrowed down choice as the source. And then, the kind of other core four and leads would then be market vertical, which you want to match to WeEstimate, and then sales type. So just a little comment there. And then also when you're thinking about making these lists, I think less can be more, but also you don't want to make it too small. For example, some people I've seen their market vertical lists can be very, very long, but again, they really want very finite reporting on, every single market vertical that they're selling into. Whereas I've seen other people have resi and commercial, or they're only, market verticals. Or I saw one where they had a commercial over 4,000 square feet, commercial less than 4,000 square feet. So really up to you how you do this. And you may even say, well, the type of reporting I want is X, and that's how I'm going to backtrack it into the lists. And then I think the other list that changes pretty often would be lead source, because that's often the effort as to how is the lead coming to you. So if you are attending a new trade show, or you ran a campaign, or you bought a commercial, or you have an ad in the, in a magazine, add it to your lead source, deactivate it when it's done, and then you'll be able to really track kind of where these are coming from and where you're spending your marketing dollars.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. So just a couple of just comments here really quickly. We report on a monthly basis our top 5 lead origins and market segments to help our marketing team efforts. So really, again, just kind of as a nice little market, just a quick comment there. And by changing a lot of this information and updating this, it gives you that additional threshold to better, run reports and things like that. And lastly, really quickly, guys, I want to touch base on here are data points. Data points are, and Sam, the best way I've always can describe a data point, maybe from a salesperson standpoint, it might be a little different from you, but a data point is kind of a nice way to have a quick hitting information point about a record, whether it be customer or a contact, that you can have at a quick glance when viewing their customer record to say, various information such as a birthday or best method to reach, like nickname to better help you identify them when you're calling them. Or, for a customer, their website, number of locations, how long they've been a customer for, kind of quick hitting information that you can view on the actual customer record itself or the contact itself to allow you to have quick hitting information about that customer or that contact at a quick glance. So when you're viewing their record or when you're getting ready to talk to them on the phone, or if you have a meeting scheduled, you can have this reference in your back pocket as a nice reference point. Am I explaining that right, Sam? From a salesperson standpoint, is there any other reason that you would want to use a data point, or is it just really more for a quick hit, easy to see information at a glance?
Yeah, so that's basically how I would describe it. Data points are only tied to your account dashboard. And so your account dashboard, if you want to pop there real quick, Stephen, will show you your customers as an account. And under the account, you could have 10 leads and 50 jobs. So the point of data points was that it's not just lists and drop down lists. It could also be, a text box, or it could be a numerical field, or it could be a checkbox. And so the idea was that at the account level, you could have high level information on, are they tax exempt or not? How many locations do they have? What manufacturer do they use right now for access control? Are they in a service agreement with us? And so that, again, quick glance, you could take a look at that and edit that information at the customer level rather than, the other details that you would get when you're inside of a particular lead or project. So yes. And there's a whole video on Teachable too on the account dashboard, how to set up those data points, the difference between all of them, how to default them on each user's dashboard. So if anyone really wants to set up that dashboard, I would suggest watching that video. This is also where you would set that heat index. So you see the little shadow of the person there. You could upload your customer's logo. On that bottom corner, you can select, that heat index we were looking at, where it's like the smiley face, frowny face, or some people put like red, yellow, green. Me and Tracy personally use it as a quick indicator versus, current customer versus a prospect. Or we've also broken it down based on different associations people are members of. So there's a lot in the account dashboard in general. So I would watch that class in Teachable and see if it might be beneficial to your team.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate the input there. And that's pretty much what I had on my end. Any other questions or comments, guys, before we kind of turn it over to Sam and she can wrap it up and tell us about the new webinar coming up in February? Any other questions, guys?
All right, cool. Looking good. So yeah, with that, I will wrap us up. Next week is a WeOpportunity 101 training. So definitely have all your users sign up for that if anybody is new or needs a refresher. And then next month's admin webinar is going to be all about our new, our document editor and some of the new features that you can do in proposals. So we'd actually done a class like this over the summer at our live admin conference, but we wanted to kind of redo that for everybody, go through some of the new features and just in general features that that the proposal document editor is capable of. And you may want to add some changes to your proposal, or you may be thinking about revamping your proposal. So definitely join that. It's going to be everything kind of proposal centric next week. So, next month, February 14th, I believe. All right. So thanks everybody for joining. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.